Hey everyone, Jim T. Graham with RC Groups and Mike from Robart. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, Jim, how are you? Doing real well over here.
We are back with questions that you have asked on RC Groups in the contest, and I'm going to flash right on there pretty quick. The ZAP Ask Me Anything contest. It's sort of over now. I would say it's officially over now. And today we're going to pick two more winners. We did a video and we said, hey, there's still time to get in here. And so we have more questions. And now we have more answers from Mike, the
We got it.
ZAP expert. I was actually utilizing ZAP products just yesterday,
What were you
and
doing?
well, I was getting the Draco ready to go to the field, which I pushed out a few days because of the weather. And then as I was doing that, I thought, I have a couple of crashed airplanes. I have a Timber X that I blew the landing gear out of, and
Mhm.
then I have an Aero Scout that I blew the nose gear out of. And so I'm going to tell a short story of woe. I used up all my foam safe everything on one of the planes, and I thought I'm going to use another product that the internet told me was safe to use. It melted a giant hole in the side of my craft, and that's
Mhm.
when I stopped. I cleared everything off, and I think I kept myself from like doing huge harm. But what I'm saying here is be careful. Yes, is it better to use something that'll melt your plane or wait a minute and get the appropriate glue? So I learned my lesson yesterday.
We'll actually talk about that in one of the questions here, Jim.
Awesome. Well, we
Actually,
will
it's the
start.
first question, actually.
Okay, well, I'm going to hand it over and you can get going on our ZAP glue questions.
Yeah, so first question is can you use Zap glue on dollar sheet foam? So, foam, I'm just going to hit home with foam on this. We just talked about it, or Jim just talked about it. Foam safe, CA, if you want to go with your CAs, okay? Or 30-minute epoxy. So if you're putting a large dollop in there, you want to go with your extended cure set time so that the thermal reaction doesn't melt it with heat. Okay.
So, with that said, I was Googling everything and it said be careful what you use epoxy wise because you could accidentally heat up your foam, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And then they recommended to only use ZAP or Z Zpoxy because
Mm-hmm.
that would be the safest thing to go with.
Yep.
So
And when we start talk when you and I do our videos on the rest of the Zpoxy, I'll grab a piece of foam. I'll grab a piece of that thicker Menards foam, and I'll put a dollop of the 5 minute in actually, and then like the day before, and then I'll cut it open and I'll show you. It's pretty wicked. Yeah.
okay.
So, all right. The next question was: you recommend using Kicker a lot in your Zap ads, but I've heard it can make the bond less strong. Is that true? Partially. So if we think we've talked about this when we did the Kicker video, if you talk about what glue does, glue goes and it searches out and it tries to get a bond all the way through all the micro cracks, right? So if we let glue take its time and do what it needs to do, your bond is basically going to look like this. Okay. Now, if you kick it and you cure it early, you're going to be here. Okay. So you're not really reaching in all the way. So you do lessen a bond, and it's not just ZAP, it's just the use of Kicker that can occur in as you use any type of accelerant on any type of glue. Okay.
Gotcha.
Um, why should we use ZAP over other brands? I don't know if we talked about this one as much in the last one. We talked about that when we were talking about the BSI question last time. We've been supporting the hobby for years. You have hobbyists, you have hobby manufacturers that are all using this glue. So it has been field tested for years. We've got manufacturers, and it's been not just in the hobby, in the RC hobby, it's in so many other hobbies, so many other types of industries that it has really stood the test of time.
And I can tell you as a guy who yesterday was trying to figure out what glue to use on this particular airplane, there were so many answers and so many people saying, no, that's not correct. And you should use this and that. I realized real quickly I should just use glue that I know I can trust and not try to find what happens to be on the shelf.
There you go. What is the airspeed of the velocity of an unladen swallow? I thought that was kind of funny just because we're talking about glue. And Saratoga.com says 24 miles an hour for a European. So if you're ever looking, there it is. Can you get some tips on how to glue together 3D printed models? 3D printed models are very difficult to adhere. Plastics in general are very difficult to adhere. So what we recommend is our plastic glues, and I would go as far as using our PolyZap. Okay, this is PT-22. This is designed for the new age plastics, your Delrin, Lexans, things of that nature. Okay, or we're getting a lot of good responses with the 30-minute epoxy, and where the 30-minute epoxy is really coming in is if you do not have a high resolution, so you're getting a lot of grain in your 3D printed, coat your 30-minute epoxy in that grain to fill in all of that grain. Use a key card, an old credit card. We do have some spreading cards that we use, and you just use that to wipe that on there, similar to the process of fiberglassing that we'll go over in a future video.
So you're creating more surface.
You're not creating more surface, you're filling in that. So if you look at my fingers, if you consider that like the resolution, right? You're filling in all of these gaps so that now you have a flat surface.
Right.
Okay.
Gotcha.
3D printed models, it's tough. It's a tough one to glue. Take your time. And with the CA, really concentrate on less is more. Use your flexi tip on there so that you get a really fine micro droplet. Okay. Models. I sometimes need a hard surface, small areas of balsa. Most of the time I rub the CA into the surface with another flat piece. So the way I'm reading this question, and this was question number 15. So you're taking balsa and you're trying to create that balsa to make it really hard. It's a similar process to what the pen turners, the people that are turning woods do. So what they do is they take a rag. Okay, I should have had a rag in here. I have one in here. So they take a rag and then they take the thin CA and then they'll gob up the thin CA in here. So they go the opposite. So instead of doing less is more, where it'll cure right away, rubber gloves so that your fingers don't get stuck to it. They put a lot of thin CA onto this, and then they run it back and forth onto the pen or the part that they're turning. And they're using the rag as an applicator of the thin CA onto the part that they're turning. So in this situation, what you might want to consider doing is rubber gloves, a rag, a lot of thin CA, and then, yes, rub that onto the part that you're trying to harden so that it actually creates that really hard surface, or go to a fiberglassing technique and then fiberglass that so that you have that kind of strength in there also. Okay. He's talking about using Teflon in the question, to put Teflon down as a breaker. I wouldn't do that. A lot of your glues may grab that Teflon, and now you're trying to sand that off, and now you have another step. Okay. Does the bond strength of CA glues decrease over time? And they put in here something similar to like a white glue. We talked about it over here a little bit. This question, our feeling is that the CA glue would actually last longer than a white glue would. And because of white glue has a moisture content in it as a diluent. So like if you ever need to wash white glues off, you can just wash it off with water. So that will soften over time. Whereas a CA glue, you're going to need to add another chemical, aka acetone, right? We also know that because of the fly fishing, using all the CA glues and the fly fishing, that it doesn't whiten, it doesn't soften or whiten underwater. So our feeling is that the CA glue will outlast a typical white glue. Okay.
Gotcha.
Suitable fillers, we talked about that one. Also using micro balloons, baking soda, and things of that nature. Just go ahead and check on the last video. Okay.
I'll put a link to that at the end of this video.
Perfect. If CA glue cures due to the interaction with moisture with the application of a light mist of water, sort of same place as so. Yes, it will. Okay, but what it will also do is now you're adding moisture to the model. So if you're looking at putting woods in there, now you can have a warping or a seeping issue also with that water in there. Okay, whereas the kicker that we have, this is a heptane based. Okay, that's a heptane based product. And so the alcohol heptane in here will evaporate, and it's not going to get any expansion of the woods and whatnot. Now, we're also talking a light, in the question, he talks about a light mist. Okay.
I will sometimes breathe on my glue joints, and I found it sort of kicks it just a little bit.
Yep.
Don't inhale them.
Yeah, please. Yeah, and that's the hard part with that is, we ask you to use this stuff in a ventilated area because of the fuming that comes off of that, and it can mess with your respiration. Okay. What's the best way to keep CA from hardening in the bottle? Use your tips. Okay. At the end, when you're done using your product, put your cap back on and buy an appropriate size bottle for the project that you're working on, and then buy another bottle later so that you are always getting the freshest glue. Okay. I'm sure some of the comments that will come out will be, well, I keep mine in the freezer. That's great if you are preparing the day before to work with that glue. If you just take that glue out of your fridge or your freezer and you open it up right away, especially in a high humidity area, you're from Texas, humidity is huge. You go down to Houston, and if you take that bottle out and you crack that open, it's going to cure it almost instantly because of all the moisture in the air. It's that sweat that you get on a cold beer on a hot day.
Right. Except on the inside.
Yep. Is there a thinner for CA glues that you would recommend? No. Because the thinners, like an acetone or things like that, are just going to break it down. So that's why we make such an ultra thin in our pink, just the ZAP CA. It's ultra thin. If you need to go thinner than that, that's pretty interesting, What is the best way to store glues to keep them from hardening in the bottle? We just talked about that in the last question. I'm a flyer builder and also a fly fisherman. Is there a significant difference between the CA you sell for RC and the CA you sell in the fly shops? Nope. No, it's actually the same formula. It is Zap-A-Gap. You'll see that if you go into the fly shops. It's actually the green bottle Zap-A-Gap. It's all it has is just a different card on it, because at the fly shops, they figured this out, I think, a little bit before the hobby shops, is that they're really spaced, they're crunched, so their planograms are a little bit tighter and they just need them up on cards. I use tip extensions to put the exact amount in. That's the flexi tips and the Z ends, but he struggles with keeping that clean. Later on, somebody else did a nice comment on that. You can soak these in acetone to keep them clean, all right, and then you can blow some glue through it to reuse them. They're really, we sell, there's 24 on a tip. They're pretty cost effective when you start looking at individual price of a tip. That's why a lot of people, is you just pop one off and you put a new one back on. All right. What is the best glue for clear canopies? It's this wonderful glue called canopy glue. It is our PT56. This is a white bottle or white glue. It does cure clear. We will be talking about this in a later video also. It does not have any fuming. One of the issues with using a CA glue on a clear canopy is that fuming, and then you get that inside of the canopy. A lot of people don't like that. So,
it's like a frost if you use CA.
Right. Or you can go back to your epoxies. A lot of people do use that. But the nice thing about the canopy glue, it's extremely flexible. So as you're flying and that airplane is shaking, that glue is moving with the canopy.
Gotcha.
Okay. I am molding a PET canopy. We just talked about that. Canopy glue. Okay. I can never get CA to bond to burnt edges of laser cuts. You're the guitar man. You guys are doing a lot of laser cuts. You want to run with this one real quick?
It's impossible. It's not going to happen. There's no glue that will ever do that because you can't get through the carbon. So the only thing, and this is why laser cutting kits is sometimes problematic, you have to sand your edges until you get back to the wood, and then you can go back to work. That sounds like a real pain because it is. So
it becomes a non-porous material. It becomes a very similar issue to plastics. Plastics are non-porous materials, and that's why they're one of the reasons that they're very difficult to bond. All right. The finishing resin doesn't dry hard enough for the with fiberglass across a hole, and he's trying to it's cracking or it's staying soft. If your fiberglass resin is soft, you probably have a expired or too old a fiberglass resin. Okay, it becomes rock hard, and don't mess with the mixtures. 1-to-1, one part resin, 1 part hardener. Mix that together, all right, and then go over the top. Now, finishing resin has no strength to it. The strength comes from the fiberglass cloth itself. Finishing resin is extremely brittle. If you put it by itself, it's going to break apart. So in this situation where you got a hole, fill that hole with a Bondo, a 5-minute, a 30-minute epoxy, some type of a filler, get that hole filled, and then fiberglass over the top of it. From the videos, I've learned that thicker viscosity ZAP CA glues can be used to bind and fill larger gaps. They would normally use epoxy in the past. Why should you use CA and not use epoxy? Great question. Speed. If you want to go faster and you want to use our slow ZAP, okay, you can use the slow ZAP to fill that gap, and then you can accelerate it and move on. Or you can use the 30-minute epoxy, and then you can clamp it in place, wait the 30 minutes for this to set, and then move on, with the understanding that even after 30 minutes, that is just a set time. That is not full cure. Okay, so make sure that you are careful with that model, and you're waiting for a really good cure on that. Okay.
back in my Hobby Lobby going to event days where we had 40 airplanes and we were flying all the time, that would be the difference. We might use 30-minute epoxy at the shop, but if we're in the field and we're doing a demo in 5 minutes, then that's when the CA breaks out.
Yep. We see that a lot in foam models. You break a foam model, you pull out. You can either fix it at the field with the PT25, which is our foam safe, or you're going to have to pull out the 30-minute epoxy when you get back if you want something a little different. Which adhesive is best for plastic and nylon? Get my fingers out of the way. Okay, PlastiZap for your traditional your plastics, PolyZap for your new age plastics. Okay, so nylon, PolyZap, regular plastics, PlastiZap. PlastiZap is actually available in a brush-on also. So if you want that good precision, or you just the nail polish brush. That's what this is. I have a supply of Robart hinge points, and he wants to know how to glue it together. 30-minute epoxy. Do not use a CA. CA's glue, they bond too fast, okay? And with all that extra vibration, we want some vibration resistance. Dry fit all of your hinges. Move your surface, your control surface around. Make sure that there is no binding or anything on the dry fit. Remove everything. Inject 30-minute epoxy on both sides. Insert your hinge points and move that control surface. You want those hinges to rotate. That's why the 30-minute works so good, because you have 30 minutes to make sure that there's no binding and those hinge points can twist and settle in properly. Okay. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast, Jim. Went through the rest of the questions.
I think we should win some sort of RC award for this informational piece, RC News Award, something like that.
Yeah. So somebody's going to win. We got 2 people who are going to win some prizes here. Okay.
Let's see what we get. Last time it was very interesting.
Number 15.
Number 15.
Right. Well, I've got to. Well, they're different. I actually have them numbered here because I needed to go through. So number 15 on my sheet here is number 28, which is the extensions, the tips and how to keep those clean. That's JC Spohr, SPOHR. Number 28 on your sheet. Okay. And let's get one more. Let's see. Who else is going to win in here today? And number 3 on my sheet, okay, which is number 10 for you. Why should I use ZAP over other brands? Okay, so that's Bass Fisher. Hey, he's a good fisherman. So, hey, we're good for that.
What number is he on my sheet?
Number 10 on your sheet. Bass Fisher. Yep.
I'm going to post that now and then post our video later.
Perfect. All right, Jim. What else can I do for you today, my friend?
That is it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to post these winners. Then I'm going to get the video all nice and pretty and get it up. And I'll drop that in the thread so that you can read or listen to all the questions that you asked. And I would say that usually I close a contest thread. I may have to close this and open something else for future questions. But I think all these questions were great just to find out what people need to know.
Definitely. So thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate you allowing me to do these questions. And next week, let's jump right back into showing everybody some more ZAP glue videos.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us and asking questions and being a part of the contest. Big thanks to Mike and ZAP. So these are ZAP glues. The contest is actually being sponsored by Robart. That's where the glue is being shipped from. But ZAP is a creator, and there are multiple companies that sell ZAP. And so at the bottom of this video, you're going to see all the companies and all their links listed in alphabetical order if you want to go and check them all out. And I got all that right, Mike. Is that all appropriate?
You got it.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Jim T. Graham with the RC Groups, Mike with Robart, and we're talking about ZAP glue today. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good one.